Moberly Rotary Club, and we're just excited to see you all this evening, even though the location's different this year, if you've been to one before, that is, and our attendance maybe had to be kept a little lower this year. We're happy that we've been able to move forward with the banquet this year and in 2021. Last spring, we had our honors banquet pretty much right before everything shut down, and so this may be one of the few events that didn't get interrupted in either one of those years due to the pandemic, and so we're happy about that as well. We want to take just a moment and welcome those who may be at home and joining us through the live stream this evening. We miss your presence here with us, but we congratulate you all as well, and as well as those gathered here this evening. We wanted to mention a few things before we get started. One of them is about restrooms, because maybe you've never been in this facility before. And we have a couple options, probably depending on which side you sit. There's some restrooms right outside that door and to the right. And there's another set of restrooms this way. If you go this way, the ladies' restroom is around the corner down the hallway a little bit. When we go through the dinner line, if you brought a mask, you might want to wear that in the line and maybe try to keep some distance between your family and others, as we've been used to all during the pandemic. And also, as you come to the food line, there is hand sanitizer there you can use before you go through the line. Now, the purpose of this annual gathering is to recognize and honor your academic achievement and dedication to learning and excelling. And it's not at all to say that your peers who are not here this evening don't deserve recognition, or that they won't go on to do great things in life as well. But the Moberly Rotary Club recognizes that you all here, you students here, the top 10% of your class, some of the brightest students in our community, have just so much potential and ability to impact the world in many ways. And so that's the main reason that we want to honor you tonight. And before we move on in our program, I wanted to take just a brief moment to introduce you to Rotary International. If you don't know about our organization, Rotary is a global network of leaders and influencers throughout the world. And for more than 110 years, Rotary's people of action have used their passion and their energy and intelligence to take on a lot of big projects around the world, from literacy and peace to water and health. We are always working to better our world and to stay committed to the end. This year, Moberly's Rotary Club is celebrating our 100th year of service in our community, so that's a big milestone for us. Rotary's motto is service above self. We provide service to others, we promote integrity, we advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through our network of business and professional and community leaders like those of us here in attendance tonight. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create change across the globe, in our communities like Moberly, and in ourselves. So we see you all as individuals who can help create lasting change in the world. We're excited to see you do that in the future, like some of you are already doing today. And maybe someday, even some of you sitting here this evening will wear a badge like ours and become part of the worldwide network of Rotarians. And so the Moberly Rotary Club welcomes you tonight. We're happy to be hosted here on the campus of Central Christian College of the Bible. And I want to now introduce David Fincher. He's the president of the college here. He's going to come up. He's the vice president of Rotary right now, and he'll give our invocation prayer, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thanks, Brian. Well, first of all, it is our pleasure to host you here on our campus. And in the last few years, we've been able to invest a lot of time and resources into remodeling and upgrading things here on the campus. So we're glad some of you may have never been here before. Some of you may have not been here for several years. We're glad that we could share that with you tonight. If you look around the top of this room, the Furneaux Center, those flags represent the countries from which students have come to Central Christian College of the Bible to study throughout our 64-year history. And those flags always remind me of the fact that here in the town of Moberly, people can come from and go to all kinds of places as their path in life is being shaped. And it's really interesting for me as a dad who's had students at this Top 10 Banquet for the past several years to be able to see some of those who have come and gone and have been part of that. And you are part of that. So we're glad that you're here as our neighbor to the south. We are glad to be your neighbor at the high school and that you can be here tonight. Before I pray, I want to tell you how the food service is going to happen. And at our banquets here, we almost always do it this way. And so if you've ever been here before, you might have had a head start. But if this is your first time, you didn't know. But we start on this side. It just makes the traffic flow better. So when the prayer and the pledge are done, you can all be seated. But those of you that are in the far side, you'll get to go first. And the two tables closest here can come down this side of the gym. And the two tables on the back can go down that side to the line, and they will bring you your drinks later, so you don't have to get your drinks. You go to the head, take your tickets to the two men that are standing there, and they will grab your ticket. You can go through the line and be served then. Would you stand with me? We'll have our opening prayer, and then remain standing for the pledge to the flag. You can either look at that flag there or this one here. It doesn't matter, but I usually use the one there, so we'll do that tonight after we pray. Father, we thank you today that we have been able to have this event and to celebrate the successes of these students and their families. Thank you for bringing them together through a year that's been difficult and different, but a year that we have been able to pull together and work together to succeed. Thank you tonight that we can celebrate with a wonderful meal that has been prepared for us, and I thank you not only for those who have prepared it and will serve it to us tonight, but for the club that's paying for it so that we can be here and be part of this event together. And Lord, I pray that you will, through our community and through our involvement with others, make us into a blessing to those around us so that we can serve them and allow them to see what value they have in their life because of what we have provided to them. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you. All right, everybody, we're going to continue on with our program tonight. If you are not quite finished with your dinner or dessert, feel free to keep eating as we continue with the activities that we have planned for this evening. But I want us to take just a moment and thank Chef Jeff and his crew for the meal that they catered for us tonight. Now, typically, we invite a bunch of special guests from our community and county and stuff, but again, because we limited attendance, we don't have a whole bunch of them with us this evening. But I did want to recognize a couple of groups of people, and the first one is if you are here this evening and you are either a Moberly High School employee or a school board member of the district, would you stand and let us recognize you this evening? We have one up here. Nobody else? Okay. There we go. And the other group I just wanted to recognize real quick is my fellow Rotarians who come together and put on the meal. If you're a current Rotarian, would you stand this evening? Thank you very much. Now, we're going to have our speaker in just a minute. I'm going to invite Bobby Riley to come up and introduce her.
Good evening. Our featured speaker this evening is Dr. Rachel Orslin, and she's a 1990 graduate of Moberly High School. Dr. Orslin is the director of Ambulatory Pediatric Infectious Disease and the International Adoption Center at St. Louis Children's Hospital and Washington University. She is a graduate of the University of Missouri-Columbia School of Medicine. She completed her residency in pediatrics at St. Louis Children's Hospital and a fellowship in pediatric infectious disease at Washington University. She has been a member of the faculty since 2005 and is currently an associate professor of pediatrics. Her special clinical interest is in the care of immunocompromised children. During the COVID-19 pandemic, she has been actively engaged with schools on safe return to in-person learning. When she is not at work, she enjoys spending time with her husband and her 3 children. Please welcome via Zoom, Dr. Rachel Orslin.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you tonight. I really wish I could be there with you in person, but then again, I'm here with my dog, and how often do I get to bring a dog to a banquet? So it really has worked out. So I want to thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I feel very honored to be in your company. It is clear that all of you are blessed with some natural gifts, but those alone would not be sufficient to reach the top of your class. Just raw intelligence would not get you a seat at the table tonight. By making it to this moment, you have demonstrated that in addition to your natural talents, you possess a very strong work ethic. You have embraced challenges, persisted in the face of setbacks, expended great effort, learned from any failures, and you have been inspired by those around you to succeed. You should be extremely proud that you have made it to this moment. You've accomplished so much during a really extraordinary time, and that takes a lot of grit. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about my career in pediatric infectious diseases. And in that process, I'm going to try to recruit a bunch of you to the field of medicine and to infectious diseases. So I'll start by talking about my education. And I started where many of you are with elementary school in Moberly. And then I attended St. Pius X Catholic School. I then later attended Moberly Senior High School. And I think really a lot has changed with the front of the school since I attended there, as well as hairstyles. You can tell by my hairstyle where you really can't even capture the full height of the hair in the picture that many things have changed since I graduated from high school in 1990. But I know that the strong education you're receiving in Moberly is really preparing you for almost any field that you choose to follow. So after I graduated from Moberly High School, I attended college at University of Missouri in Columbia. And I was actually fortunate to be a part of a program called the Conley Scholars Program. And this was a pre-professional acceptance program where you actually qualified out of high school to get an early acceptance into medical school. And this was a really great thing for me. It actually took off a lot of the pressure because there were some grade requirements and also some classes that needed to be taken. But really, I had the opportunity to try different areas without the risk of making a B in a class that would somehow damage my chances of getting in medical school. I did ultimately decide to study biology, which is a common field for people who attend medical school. But overall, there are a lot of different degree paths people can take to medical school. Generally speaking, people do need to complete a certain number of requirements, and that includes having at least 1 year of English, at least 1 full year of biology, 2 years of chemistry, and then in order to attend medical school, most individuals need to sit for the medical college admissions test. So when I finished college, then I went on to medical school at also at University of Missouri. And the way medical school generally operates is that the first 2 years of school are generally preclinical. So that involves learning the basics of anatomy and physiology and biochemistry. The University of Missouri specifically, and actually many medical school curriculums, are transitioning to do something called problem-based learning. And this really appealed to me. In problem-based learning, you learn actually by studying cases. So instead of sitting in a lecture hall and sort of getting a lecture about different diseases or different conditions, you actually learn about a case or learn about a disease process and about how the body works by talking about cases in small groups. And you actually teach one another about different elements of that case. So that was a really great way for me to learn. After the preclinical years, generally medical schools are organized in that the 4th year is core rotations. And this is where students travel through all the different basic medical specialties like pediatrics and OBGYN, psychology and neurology. And you sort of get a taste for all the different specialties. It was during that time that I really fell in love with pediatrics, although I have to say I really enjoyed all of my clinical rotations. The 4th year of medical school generally involves elective rotations. So students then get to hone in on the kind of specialty that they would be most interested in learning about. But sometimes you're also encouraged to try things that you might not go on to do. So I spent time doing trauma surgery, even though I would later decide that that wasn't kind of the lifestyle I liked. But then you can also do subspecialty rotations. And that was where I first really encountered pediatric infectious diseases. I rotated with a Dr. Cooperstock and really enjoyed learning about this special field of pediatrics. I also had the opportunity in medical school to do an away rotation, and many medical schools offer this. This was a time where I traveled to New Mexico to work on a Native American reservation with the Navajo people in Crown Point, New Mexico. And really, being from a small town and not having traveled extensively beforehand, I was really sort of shocked to find out kind of the desperate conditions that people in our own country lived in, with lack of access to resources, limited education, and many problems of poverty and alcohol and drug abuse, but really a beautiful group of people with which to work in a beautiful part of the country. They are cared for through the Indian Health Services. So I had the opportunity to work in a clinic there for a month. After completing medical school, I was fairly certain that I was bound to be a pediatrician. And the reasons why I chose pediatrics are that I really enjoyed interacting with kids and their families. When you take care of pediatric patients, it really involves taking care of the entire family. And there's just a really wide spectrum of patients in pediatrics. Children come in all different sizes, from babies that weigh 1 pound to teenagers and even young adults. And the other good thing about pediatrics is that kids are generally healthy. And also we can do a lot of things to keep them healthy, like giving routine childhood vaccinations and helping to encourage a healthy lifestyle. And so that's one of the really big draws of pediatrics. After medical school, you choose a residency program. This actually involves, submitting a match. And so you actually interview at a variety of different locations, and then you kind of rank your list. And then on match day, you find out where you're going. And for me, that was St. Louis Children's Hospital. Most medical specialties after medical school involve 3 years of additional training. Now, this is like your first job. You are getting paid for this work. Medical school, obviously, many people pay for, but when you move on to residency, it's your first paid job. Now, the training can be pretty intense. When I was working, that we were often on call overnight, every fourth night. Since the time I was a resident, they've made some restrictions about work hours. And so currently residents are restricted from working more than 80 hours a week. So you can imagine it's a very long work week. But like I say to people who are considering a career in a field of medicine, any job that you really are interested in succeeding in, you really will need to put in a lot of hours. So this is similar to that. And if you're doing something you love, it really doesn't seem like a lot of work. So for this 3-year training period, you move through, again, all the medical subspecialties. You spend time on general pediatric wards, you spend time in outpatient clinics, and then you do things like neonatal intensive care unit. You also get to circulate through subspecialties like infectious diseases, endocrinology, and you get to see what life would be like, what patients you would care for in each of these subspecialties. And it was through that experience that I became most interested in doing additional training in infectious diseases. Forgot to mention, in residency, you also get to try some elective training, and this can really involve very interesting types of experiences. So I got to spend some time at a diabetes camp, and that was really interesting because it's kids with chronic medical conditions that we care for in the hospital and often see them when they're sick. But this was an opportunity to see those kids when they were well and how they manage their chronic disease, really in the real world, doing things that normal kids do, like attending summer camp. I also had the opportunity to travel to Honduras to work in a hospital there for a month. And again, was really an eye-opening experience for me, working in a country where there were really limited resources, lack of medical equipment, lack of supplies, and really to see how the doctors work with that limited equipment to really care for patients, but really how they really didn't receive the same type of care we receive in the United States. And this is in a really beautiful setting, but really desperate conditions for many people in terms of their health care. For fellowship training, I stayed at Washington University. And, when you're doing a fellowship, again, this is a paid job. Your schedule is sort of dictated. You spend time on inpatient rotations, taking care of people as a consulting service. So you're generally asked to see patients with a specific question regarding infectious diseases. So we do, as a fellow, you do both clinical care, but then there's also a requirement for research and scholarly activity. And so many people do basic science research, and my research project involved looking at strep the kind of bacteria that causes strep throat and looking at antibiotic resistance in strep throat. And we were able to find that strep throat, in some cases, was naturally resistant to some common antibiotics. It was also through this experience that I came to learn that I didn't really love doing research in a lab. I really most enjoyed taking care of patients. I think I wrote this paper before it was published about 20 different times, many revisions before it was ultimately published. And I really found that my strengths didn't lie in working in a lab, but really in caring for patients. So that's always good when you take on a new challenge and you find out, wow, this is not really where my gifts lie. This is not where my interest lies. I will focus my energy on something else. So after my fellowship, I actually stayed on at Washington University. I have mostly been in a clinical care position since that time. So my role has included doing outpatient infectious diseases. So that can include just seeing kids in clinic with basic complaints like fevers and lymph node enlargement. I also take care of kids with orthopedic infections like bone and joint infections. We were able to start an international adoption clinic at St. Louis Children's Hospital. That involves seeing kids who are brought home through international adoption, and we do screening for infectious diseases and other conditions that can affect those children. We also provide travel visits when people could travel and when people ultimately will travel to help keep them as safe as possible when they're traveling. And then I also spend time taking care of inpatients, people who are hospitalized. I've done this in the past through the general pediatric service, as well as the general infectious disease service. And most recently, I spend time mostly taking care of kids with immunocompromising disorders. And this has really been a shift for me in the last couple of years and required me to actually learn a whole new kind of specialty in caring for kids with immunocompromising conditions. So these include kids who have gone through bone marrow transplants, kids who have had organ transplants, kids who are undergoing cancer chemotherapy, or some kids who are born with immune defects. And it's really been an interesting and challenging time to really learn how to care for these kids the best and work with a new group of physicians. So one of the best parts of my job is really all the amazing people with whom I get to work. And that includes, and one of the most important people in my career has really been my mentor, Dr. Gregory Storch. And I really think this is one of the most important parts of developing a successful career is having a good mentor. And my lifelong mentor has been Dr. Storch. He's really helped me to choose the right opportunities to shape my career. He's helped me to stretch myself to achieve new goals that maybe I wouldn't have reached for. And he's also respected my need for a certain type of work-life balance. This was really important when I was actually doing my fellowship training. I was expecting my first child and decided that I would like to take a leave of absence from my fellowship for a period of time. And then I actually returned to do my fellowship part-time. And I'm not sure that anyone had ever done that at Washington University. And I really had the full support of my mentor, Dr. Storch, and my division director at the time to do this. And I think it really led to a really strong commitment to the university, and it showed me their commitment to me. But it allowed me to kind of have the type of life balance that I wanted for myself. Dr. Storch, when he's not mentoring me, works on diagnosing new infections. They've described new tick-borne infections that are transmitted in Missouri. And they actually look at different ways to diagnose these in the laboratory. Another part of my career actually involves mentoring people who are in training. Some people ask me, oh, your title is associate professor. Does that mean you teach? And I wouldn't say that I necessarily teach in a traditional sense of having a classroom. I do give some lectures, but the main way I teach is through interacting with the fellows and residents and other trainees that come and work with the infectious diseases service. So I have the opportunity to teach them as we are caring for patients, but I also have the opportunity to in some ways support their research or learn from their research. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the kind of interesting projects that our fellows do. So this is Dr. Drew Schwartz. He actually studies poop. So he looks at the effect of antibiotic treatment on babies who are in the intensive care unit. And they looking at the poop from babies to determine what type of bacteria are likely to make those babies sick later. And the hope is that we can sort of identify those things and potentially intervene to keep babies healthy. Dr. Sarah Green actually studies a disease that we don't see in the United States. It's a tropical disease spread by mosquitoes that's called filariasis. And it actually can cause these terrible deformities of the legs in individuals who are chronically infected with this parasite. And so she's working to develop diagnostic tests that help identify where medications can be used to stop this disease from spreading. Taylor Hendrickson also studies diseases in Africa. He actually spends time in Sierra Leone looking at preventing infection and treating infection and improving nutrition in pregnant women with the hope to improve the outcome for their babies. And they really, he works with the Dr. Mark Maneri, who's really had a tremendous impact on children in Africa and other parts of the world that are more resource limited, and improve the life expectancy of those children. A colleague with whom I've worked on some research projects is Stephanie Fritz. She actually looks at a common germ that is on the skin called Staph aureus. And she actually goes into people's homes and looks and determines where these bacteria may live. So she has household transmission studies that look at people and their household contacts, as well as surfaces in the house and pets, and they actually take samples and find out where the Staph aureus germ lives. And the hope is that she can target certain interventions like cleaning and using certain medications to help people prevent infections in their households. So some of my colleagues work on bacteria and in households, and some look directly at how our immune system responds to infection. My colleague, Anthony Orbital, actually looks at a certain type of cell called a macrophage. And this cell is actually really important in responding to infections and also to vaccinations. When we get vaccinated, the macrophages are really important for taking up those immune proteins to help train your body to respond to vaccination. And so he looks at how these cells help to fight off infection or respond to vaccination, but as well as how these cells keep us from having our immune system overreact. And we've seen that with the novel coronavirus infection, where some people have a problem not only with the infection, but with their own body overreacting to that infection. My friend Celeste Morley also studies the immune system, and if I can make her video play, it may play or it may not. She shows how white blood cells are actually able to move and swarm around to actually find where bacteria are to kill them. Another one of my colleagues who works on bacteria is David Rosen, and he studies a certain type of bacteria called Klebsiella pneumonia. And this bacteria can cause serious and life-threatening infections. And he uses a mouse model to actually study how the bacteria causes infection and really how the immune system can respond. And really the goal of this is to be able to fight off these infections or create vaccines to treat or to prevent these infections altogether. This is my division director, Dr. David Hunstead, who actually studies a bacteria called E. coli. And this is a common germ that lives in our body, but can cause some serious and life-threatening infections. And this is a picture on the side of a urinary tract infection, where this is a microscopic view of the kidney, and all the green material there are E. coli bacteria. And you can see these red cells are swarming in to try to eat up the bacteria. And he studies how the immune system responds and how that's different between men and women. Another interesting investigator in my division is Andrew Janowski. We're all aware that novel viruses can emerge and cause infection with the novel coronavirus. Dr. Janowski actually looks to try and discover new viruses. And on this picture on the side is a virus he studies called astrovirus VA1. And what he does is look at this virus and try to determine how this new virus makes individuals sick. Some of my colleagues don't do research, but perform other functions for the hospital. My colleague Erica Hayes, who was one of my co-fellows, we've actually spent our entire career together, takes care of our patients with HIV infection. She also provides medical education, and one of the most important aspects of her job recently has been doing infection prevention. And this is the way we set up procedures in the hospital to prevent the spread of infection. So you can see me dressed in the garb that we wear now to see patients, which includes face shields and face masks and gowns and gloves. And in this way, we've had very little evidence of spread of infection in our hospital because we've been instructed to use these techniques that are so successful in preventing infection. My colleague Jason Newland studies antibiotic stewardship, and this is an area that I've participated in as well. This is looking at how antibiotics are used in the hospital and really trying to shape the way that practitioners use antibiotics so that they're used in the circumstances where they're necessary and not used in circumstances where they can really just cause side effects or drive antibiotic resistance. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, many of us have shifted kind of the work that we've done. And and Jason Newland, as well as a colleague of mine, Dr. David Rosen, we've shifted our focus to some degree on working with schools to try to find the best strategies for keeping schools open and keeping kids in school. And this is a picture of samples that are being collected as part of a project to study whether there was any evidence of transmission of the coronavirus in schools. And we really wanted to focus on having schools open because really as pediatricians, we know that school is a very important place for children, both educationally, but also for their health and mental well-being. And so we've really worked with a number of different organizations, including the Department of Education, umbrella organization called Education Plus that includes school superintendents and school personnel across the region. We've worked with the independent schools as well as the charter schools to really come up with guidance to help keep schools operating safely through the pandemic. And one of the strategies was developing screening tools and then also just looking at the strategies that we know can be very effective in preventing the spread of infection. In fact, we've been so successful this year in preventing infection through our mitigation strategies that include some physical distancing, cohorting, using masks, and keeping symptomatic students out of school that we've really seen a dramatic decline in illnesses in our community. And it's not just the coronavirus that we've prevented in children, it's really influenza and RSV and other viral infections. Strep throat is at an all-time low. So these strategies have really been effective in keeping kids safe and healthy this year. We have worked with our local pediatrician group. And again, this group of pediatricians actually looked at children coming to their clinics who had symptoms of respiratory illnesses, and they looked at risk factors for having infection with the novel coronavirus. And they were really able to demonstrate that children attending school had a reduced risk of becoming infected with the coronavirus compared to their class or students that were not attending in-person school. So through this research, we've really been able to gain confidence about the importance and the safety of children being in person in school. We were able to work with the Centers for Disease Control. This was a project led by my colleague, Dr. Jason Newland, that really looked at students in the St. Louis region as well as in Springfield. And we looked at the students that were attending, and when there was a positive case of coronavirus in the environment, we looked at their close contacts. And again, we found very little evidence of spread of the coronavirus when mitigation strategies were employed. So this is things like some degree of physical distancing, although we were able to demonstrate that the full 6 feet of distance wasn't necessary to prevent transmission. And this is really important because this has allowed the CDC to reshape their guidance. And really on the day they published this particular study of this project, as well as several other projects involving schools, they updated their guidance for K-12 education and really reflected the fact that students could be closer together in the classroom as long as other mitigation strategies were in place. And this was really important to areas that hadn't brought students back into the school or had only brought them back in the hybrid approach because they were attempting to keep children further apart than maybe was necessary. So we were really proud of this project, that it was able to essentially, hopefully, improve the chances that school children can be in person and that we know that it can be done very safely. The next thing that I've moved to in the pandemic is really encouraging and educating people about vaccinations. And so that's really been an important part. We are in the process of doing clinical trials that will involve children using different vaccine platforms. Children have been less affected by the novel coronavirus, but we know as we vaccinated adults, we've seen those rates of infection go down very low in that population in areas where vaccination uptake has been high. And so we know in order to really reduce the chances of spread of this virus in our community, we will require vaccination of children. And so we are working with several different companies to study that. The studies so far in children 12 to 16, at least with the Pfizer vaccine, show very good safety and highly high levels of effectiveness of the vaccine. And so we're really encouraged by that and are hoping to study that in even younger children so we can protect all children and communities from infection with the coronavirus. So some of the unique benefits of my job have been that it's really intellectually stimulating. I'm always learning something new. I think, there's no situation where it doesn't require me to read something else, to talk to someone else, to learn something new. New opportunities are always being presented. And I really enjoy this job because I'm able to interact with people. It's a job where I feel like I can help individuals and the community. My responsibilities are varied, so I'm not doing the same thing every day. I might be working in the hospital at one point in time. I might be giving lectures. I may be doing some advocacy work. And so I really am able to do a lot of different types of work within my job. And I really find that very interesting. And the last thing is my job has allowed me a flexible schedule so that I can have a work-life balance that works for me. Some of the challenging aspects are that the training is long, but it is rewarding, and it's certainly, if you're doing something you love, actually that long training doesn't seem so long after all. There's a lot of responsibility attached to the job, and there are challenging and difficult situations, but certainly having the support of my colleagues has really been important for me in this career. So really the best part of my job is that I have a career that's interesting and exciting, and a career with which I'm constantly learning, but I also have the flexibility and support to have the kind of work-life balance I want so that I can be with my family and with my children. And so I really thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and really congratulations on your amazing achievement.
Well, we think we're going to give you a chance to ask a couple questions if we get her back up there. I think Brandy's working on that for us. Lori's going to come and have a mic down here. And if you, let's see, is she going? Okay, good. If somebody has a question, just raise your hand or stand up real quick, and we'll give you a few minutes. I see someone in the very back over there. I guess you're hearing us okay, Dr. Orson? Maybe she's not. Hello, hello. You may have to turn her up a little more. I think I heard her a little bit, didn't I? This is what you get when you do virtual, Zoom, all that. You guys have probably had a lot of experience with that this year. I think she's hearing us, but we're not hearing her much. Well, we may just have to scrap this part if we're not able to hear her. But why don't you just thank her once again, because she's hearing us. Thank you very much for speaking with us tonight. So we're going to move on into our awards tonight and honoring you all. We're going to have your principal and the president of the school board come up for this part.
All righty. Thank you all for being here tonight. What a great evening where we get to celebrate some of the best that Moberly High School has to offer. Celebration's been a long time coming. We've obviously been planning this for quite some time, and I think back to last year's ceremony where it was one of the last events where we got to celebrate our students in person, and it's just been a long time coming. I always say that I have the unique opportunity to see our students every day performing in the classroom, asking tough questions, working with their teachers, caring about the outcome of that math test. So it's a pleasure just to be a part of this and see their hard work paid off. Obviously, this night is also about the opportunity to share with families and the community the accomplishments of our students. I want to thank the Rotary Club for hosting this great event. The Rotary Club has been doing this a long time, and their commitment to education in our community is vital to their success. I want to show appreciation to Central Christian College of the Bible. They've graciously hosted this event, and we are so proud that we have a partner right next door. To the family members of our students, this is a celebration for you as well. Each one of you plays an important and intricate role in the academic success of our young people. To you students, be proud of your academic success. Your accomplishments in the classroom are going to set up for long-term success, and I think Dr. Orson, who walked the same halls that you walk, is a testament to that. And I'm speaking to our freshmen who haven't been here before, like, it is an amazing opportunity to see somebody who was at the high school do great things and be involved in all of the opportunities that we have at the school. So continue to hold fast to hard work, perseverance, consistency, and you can achieve great things, and I know that many of you will. You have so much to offer. You have so many things to achieve, and so always strive to achieve more, and I can't wait to see where you go. So we're gonna pass out these awards, and it's always fun because the freshmen get to go first. And yeah, freshmen are like, yeah, they're a little bit nervous. So here's how this is gonna work. Our freshman class is going to begin to line up against the wall over here. Mrs. Stanek and Mr. Baudouin, they're gonna wave. They're gonna help line you up in alphabetical order. We're gonna bring you across the stage. You're gonna get your award, and then you're gonna go walk back. There's Mr. Williams over there in the corner. He's gonna get you lined up in the bleachers to take a picture, and we'll do this. So at this time, I got you, Mr. Baudouin. At this time, would the freshman class of 2024 begin to make their way over to this side, and you're going to line up in alphabetical order by last name. Mr. Baker, you're up first. All right, at this time, the sophomore class, you can go ahead and go to the back and begin to get lined up. The back that way. All right, guys, as I call your name, you're going to come up and step up the stairs. Be careful of the top step, okay? It's a doozy. All of us about fell earlier. So at this time, you're going to come on, Mr. Baker, come on up, and I'm going to call you by name. You're going to come and get your award. First up, Zachary Baker. Quentin Borges. Adeline Chang. Cameron Christ. Chloe Ferguson. Charles Gibbs. Aiden Hefner. Montgomery Lentz. Good job, buddy. Got this. Taylor Martin. Madeline McAlpin. Nope. Matthew McConnell. Emma Mellinger. Chloe O'Donnell. John O'Laughlin. Raylan Rampton. Carter Ross. Mallory Ross. Bailey Snodgrass. Madison Thompson. Kaya Utterback. Let's give a hand to the class of 2024. All right, we're going to take some pictures back there when everybody gets lined up. So I'm going to have the juniors. The juniors, would you go back and see Mrs. Stanek in the corner and get lined up? All right, let's get started with the sophomore class of 2023. First up, James Basinger. Madeline Quarterman. Michael Goff. Carly Hardy. Colin Huffman. Catherine Jackson. Megan Kenyon. Hallie Kroner. Kennedy Messer. Maxwell Meistrick. Anna Rivera. Caitlin Roberts. Lane Schumann. Brett Smith. Abigail Smothers. Give another hand to the sophomore class of 2023. Hey, freshmen, if you noticed, I didn't even have to say anything, and the seniors did their own. Good job, seniors. They're anxious for a lot of things. All right, let's celebrate the junior class of 2022. First up, Jamie Ansel. Shelby Boffman. Congrats. Sophia Bogan. James Ferris. Grace Kurtz. Jacob Lindsay. Kelly Merrick. Seaton Miller. Brianna O'Laughlin. Melena Pence. Abigail Richardson. Lane Ross. Emma Skubik. Let's give one more hand to the junior class of 2022. I don't know if they're impatient because they have 10 days of school left, or or they're just good at this because they've done it before. But let's celebrate our seniors who are I like to call them short timers. Senior class of 2021, Anna Klickner. Maggie Christ. Nick Fiella. Elizabeth Latson. Cheyenne Lee. Vivian Lee. Ashton Martin. Jackson Miller. Shelby Noel. Riley Stone. Candace Vargas. Josie Wilson. Molly Wright. Congrats, Molly. Let's give a hand to our seniors and all of our top 10 honorees.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was just gonna wait till they got their picture. The senior pictures took the longest. It's their last one. I want to take just a moment and give a thank you to Lori Turk and the Top 10 committee from Rotary for planning the event tonight. Would you thank them? And once again, we just want to thank you all for attending tonight. We congratulate you, students, on the job well done. Encourage you to keep working hard because it's going to pay off and you'll reap the rewards in your future, wherever that may be. And we want to leave you tonight with something that all Rotarians should recognize and maybe even be able to recite. About 90 years ago, a Rotarian named Herbert Taylor created something called the four-way test. And the four-way test is described this way by Rotary International. It's a nonpartisan, non-sectarian, ethical guide for Rotarians to use in their personal and professional relationships. The test is known around the globe. It's been translated into more than 100 languages. And even though many of you sitting here tonight aren't Rotarians, I think that this kind of guide is applicable to us in whatever vocation that we may have or whatever relationships that we may develop in life. And the test asks the following questions of all the things that we think or say or do. First, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I really think if you keep questions like that in mind as you go through life, and if you keep excelling and setting out to be a high achiever, you will collectively make an enormous difference and impact in our world. And we're looking forward to seeing that. Maybe one of you will be back here someday at a Top 10 giving your presentation and telling us all what you've been able to accomplish. So have a great rest of the school year. Thanks again for attending this evening, and you all are dismissed.